Namaste. We have all heard of the problem of the frozen shoulder, where there is nothing medically wrong with the shoulder, and yet he can't move it, and it's extremely painful. This is a good example of somatic disorder. Disorders that don't have a satisfactory medical explanation and involve significant psychological distress constitute this chapter of somatic symptoms and related disorders. To discuss the subject today, we have with us psychoanalysis consultant Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Namaste, Mr. Vaidya.
Namaste.
So, can we start with what somatic symptoms and related disorders are all about?
Contrary to what we would like to believe, this is not related strictly only to somatization of psychological effects. People who come with a background of psychology, they often have this feeling that somatic disorders in DSM should relate to the somatic disorders caused by repressed psychological effects.
Hmm.
However, this chapter has only one element of conversion disorder where this element is taken care of.
Okay.
Conversion of psychological effects or phenomena into a biological problem. Rest
Mm-hmm.
of the disorders given in this chapter, they relate to a psychological difficulty, sorry, a somatic difficulty around which psychological distress gets manufactured.
All right.
So we are looking here at the psychological distress getting manufactured around a somatic symptom. So this is what the chapter is
Mm-hmm.
all about. And my personal feeling is that this chapter is too conservative and there is a very substantial uh, psychological component to most of the chronic diseases that we have. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
DSM is very conservative and does not enter into that area which today, unfortunately, the biological medicine or the somatic part of allopathy is dealing with chronic lifestyle issues like diabetes, asthma, arthritis, cholesterol, blood pressure, as though they were purely biological diseases where the psychological component is taken only to be a occasional aggravator, not a predictable variable. However,
Mm-hmm.
the belief of many people, including me, is that the psychological factors are actually more responsible than the biological factors, and they are
Mm-hmm.
more psycho and less somatic of diseases. And on this part, I think psychiatry as a whole, and DSM in particular, has been very, very conservative. And that spirit of
Mm-hmm.
conservatism continues in this chapter of DSM.
Right. So, listening to all these, what disorders does actually come under this chapter? What does it cover?
There are 6 disorders this chapter covers, which are more psychologically oriented. Others, of course, are related to the medication, substance, and so on, or they are unspecified or the specific. The 6 that we should be concerned about from a psychoanalytic standpoint are, let us say, somebody is fearful of a sickness. Something will happen to me. Keeps thinking about it all the time, invest a lot of time and energy into it. And this is called the illness anxiety disorder. The anxiety related to a sickness which the person apprehends will come. That is one disorder, which earlier, I think in the earlier DSM description, it used to be called hypochondria or something very near to hypochondria. Something will happen to me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then the next part is, let us say you have one sickness, one or more somatic symptom already, one or more
Mm-hmm.
somatic sickness, that around that psychological distress is manufactured. So disproportionate amount of anxiety, disproportionate amount of catastrophic thinking, disproportionate amount of low mood, disproportionate amount of irritation, and other psychological distressing factors are manufactured around that symptom, one or two symptoms. So if five people, let us say, have a knee pain, one of them will manufacture 100 psychologically distressing entities around this knee pain. And that is what is called the somatic symptom disorder.
All right.
That there is one somatic symptom which is there for real, or maybe even two or three somatic symptoms. And around that, psychological distress is manufactured in the form of anxiety, low mood, catastrophic thinking, avoidance,
Mm-hmm.
much of medical checkups, constantly thinking and talking
Mm.
about it, which impairs the functioning of the person otherwise. The third element is related to uh, this factitious disorder, where somebody feigns a sickness for whatever
Mm-hmm.
purpose he wants, and he pretends as though he has some sickness, which in fact he has at very low intensity or does not have at all.
Mm-hmm.
And at times,
Okay.
to others to say, you have this sickness. So factitious
Mm.
disorder imposed on oneself or factitious disorder imposed on somebody else. That's the third thing that this chapter talks about. Then we have in this chapter the pseudocyesis or the false pregnancy,
Yeah.
where one believes that uh, one has that pregnancy, but in fact one does not have it. Then
Mm-hmm.
the conversion disorder, where uh, and this is the only area where I think DSM has been slightly bold, but I would say it is still a paper tiger. It is still bold within
Okay.
a very measured scale. So this is where
Mm-hmm.
something psychological disturbs something biological. So, and in this
Mm-hmm.
biological, they have gone only to the extent of sensory motor functioning. They have not
Right.
gone to the extent of complex organ functioning or complex physiological functioning,
Mm.
which is there but still not addressed in DSM.
Right.
What they have done is, for example, say the act of swallowing. It's a very
Mm.
sensory motor act.
Mm.
And because of some psychological difficulty, I develop a difficulty in swallowing. But when I undertake the medical examinations, everything comes out to be normal.
Mm.
Somebody has difficulty in speaking, but when the apparatus is checked up medically, nothing wrong is found. Somebody has a difficulty in hearing or smelling, but medically nothing is wrong.
Mm.
So these are the disorders which we call are the conversion disorders, where because of some psychological reason, a normal biological sensory motor activity is impaired. And when
Mm.
medical investigations, nothing can be found. The example of
Right.
frozen shoulder that you gave, that example of frozen shoulder is a very good example of conversion disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Then we
Mm-hmm.
have, lastly, psychological disorders which negatively affect other medical conditions. For example,
Okay.
you may have diabetes or you may have blood pressure, and because of your high
Mm-hmm.
anxiety or anger, that that problem can get aggravated.
All right.
So here what we have is the somatic symptom is aggravated because of a psychological condition. In the first case, what we have is in somatic symptom disorder, what we have is because of a somatic issue, around it, psychological distress is manufactured. Whereas
Right.
psychological factors affecting other medical conditions, we have psychological factors aggravating the somatic symptoms.
The other way.
These are the 6 largely psychologically dependent disorders which this chapter talks about.
So they're again quite different. So what is the psychoanalytic explanation of causation of these disorders?
Let us take one by one. First one, the somatic symptom disorder. Psychoanalysis explains essentially has to do with uh, the catastrophic thinking and high amount of anxiety, the fear that something wrong will happen to me, or its exaggeration of what is there. And this psychoanalytically we say can be rooted in the split being open, because of which there can be an attack of the bad breast leading to catastrophic thinking, and therefore sort of hypervigilance and uh, hyper negative thinking about the somatic disorder. It can also be because of the non-resolution of the Oedipus, that the castration attack can come anytime. It can also be because of over the time uh, unpredictable experience with the parents, that the parents can assault anytime, and the unpredictability of the parents results in that catastrophic thinking, which again gets at play. It can also be because of a series of unfortunate accidents the person has, or a series of very painful losses or painful encounters the person has had. These are some of the psychoanalytic reasons why the the somatic symptom disorder uh, exists. Similarly, the anxiety illness disorder. One element that we add in the the illness anxiety disorder. In that illness anxiety disorder, one very important element apart from catastrophic thinking based upon Oedipus, unresolved Oedipus and open split. One another important element is what Kohut used to say about hypochondria. It is the disintegration of the cell. So the disintegration of a weak cell, especially the cell which in Kohut's view is of narcissistic or borderline nature, that disintegration under stress, and the stress can be anything including midlife. It can just be a phase of life also. You did not have any spectacular event. Of course, there can be psychologically spectacular events. And that can also lead to hypochondriacal feelings, which now we term in this classification as the illness anxiety disorder. So disintegration of a weak cell is also a psychoanalytic explanation. Coming to the uh, the next disorder, which is factitious disorder. This has a lot to do with secondary gains and repressed need of anger to take revenge from others by falling sick, disturb others, or it may be an unmet need for attention, affection, sympathy, and empathy. It may be an attempt to get closer again the parents who are distant or who are lost. It may also be an attempt to have a good atmosphere around oneself, where in the childhood one has learned that only when one is sick, the home is at peace, otherwise people are fighting. So these are some of the secondary gains and some of the motivations which will lead to a factitious disorder. It may also be just to appear special.
Okay.
Not need to be somebody else when you are throwing it on somebody else that you have this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically, then we come to the conversion disorder, and there the defense of somatization is at work, where so much affect is generated that it cannot be managed by the regulatory system. So when affect is generated, part of it gets expressed, part of it gets regulated, and part of it gets repressed. Now, if the regulatory and the repressive mechanisms fail and expression is not possible, then the excess negative effect that goes into the system, the body, because it has nowhere to go. It cannot be expressed, cannot be repressed, it is too much, and the regulatory system also cannot sublimate it or displace it somewhere else. It's too much for that kind of operation. So then it goes into the body and gets somatized. So the defense of somatization, because of inability to handle too much of affect generation, is the prime reason for conversion disorder. Right? Now, apart from that, there are other explanations. For example, the anxiety from unresolved Oedipus can easily lead to some obsessive fixation type of things, which can result in psychomotor impairment, for example, in swallowing. That may be because of unresolved Oedipus. It may also be uh, because of ambivalence towards somebody. You can neither gulp it in nor gulp it out. It can also be because the containers are full. You can't swallow it anymore. It can also be because the act of swallowing gets reinterpreted as some other aggressive or sexual act, and therefore the resistance and guilt come up. When we go to other issues like frozen shoulder, this is a issue of conversion where the psychoanalytic explanation is two contrasting are at work. You want to slap somebody, and it is immoral to slap that person. It may be like somebody wants to slap his father, so the aggression and energy are here, and then there is the pressure of the superego and the guilt, and that paralyzes it completely, because if not paralyzed, the person can act out.
Mm.
So it is very high aggression and very high superego control, and the two are so in such a logjam situation that this gets frozen. So that getting frozen itself is a defensive act to prevent that part from acting out the aggression. At the same time, the frozen shoulder also gives you a lot of pain, which is a kind of a reparation of guilt. So you not only restrain yourself, you punish yourself with that pain. And similar things can happen in other forms of conversion. So based upon which kind of conversion are we talking about, some factor will be at play. Essentially, it will be some psychological phenomena or negative effect which is at play. In a very generic sense, we can say it is because of blockage of excessive negative effect. That excessive negative effect gets concentrated and blocked at some point, because of which the conversion difficulty takes place. But of course, that effect is being generated in some phenomenon, some psychoanalytic phenomenon. And after being generated in that phenomena, the mechanism of affect management is not able to manage that effect. So we are also looking at the constitutional aspect of personality, of how much affect it can process well. So the conversion gets into this kind of things. For example, another conversion is related to not being able to listen when everything is okay in the ears. And I knew a person really in real life who had this trouble, who got the ears examined and nothing medically wrong was found. It was hysterical deafness. And this hysterical deafness which is a conversion disorder, was because the person was very sensitive and his superiors used to scold him very badly in the office. And that was so painful to him that he developed a defense that I just can't hear it anymore in order to save himself from more pain. So psychoanalysis would have a different explanation for a variety of conversion disorders that we see. So conversion disorder itself is such a large category that we don't have one explanation for it. Based upon what kind of conversion we are looking at, we will have a couple of psychoanalytic explanations. One for frozen shoulder, one for swallowing, one for not being able to hear. It can also be, for example, very high constant acidity for no reason. And that may be anger in response to anxiety of not being able to shoulder responsibility. A fundamentally dependent person is saddled with responsibility, and the social role is such that he has to shoulder the responsibility which he can't, and the corresponding anxiety and rage can result in somatization of it. So,
In fact, many times it has been seen that person in conversion disorder, they just don't stick to one. Like they have tremors, they lose their speech, aphonia. So it affects different organs, the sensory organs, in different ways. How can you explain that?
uh, we can look at two or three different phenomena to explain that particular. One can be that it is the same negative effect which is getting distributed in two, three different ways because it does not want to get distributed only in one way. That would be uh, dangerous to survival of the person.
Okay.
Let me give an example.
Mm.
Let us say uh, a person has too much of anxiety because of unresolved Oedipus.
Mm-hmm.
If all the anxiety was to go to increase the heartbeat and somatize into high pulse rate, it might become dangerous
Mm.
for the person.
Right.
What will happen is one component of that anxiety will go into palpitation, another
Mm.
component of that anxiety might go into asthmatic attack, a third component might go into vertigo, a fourth
Mm.
component may go into knee pain,
Mm.
a fifth component may go into nausea,
Mm.
and a person will complain of all the five, when in fact it is the anxiety of the same phenomena. The anxiety is generated and then it gets distributed into five channels.
Mm.
So once we go to the root of anxiety and we are able to resolve it, all the five should see salutary effects.
Right.
So this can be one.
In fact, that's right.
Yeah, you're saying something.
No, I just wanted you to give few more examples so that people can actually understand how it can actually show up.
Say for
If you
example,
could give few more examples.
take one more example of anger.
Mm.
That the split is open, huge amount
Mm.
of aggression is generated. The
Mm.
Oedipal aggression also is there. And over the time, learning with the parent also is there, where there is a lot of anger
Mm.
towards the parents bottled in.
Right.
Now, all this anger from three sources: anger from the open,
Mm.
anger from the Oedipus, and anger from over the time learning with the parents, over the time
Mm.
dysfunctional interaction with the parents. From all the three sources,
Mm.
anger comes. And there is a volume of anger there. And this volume of anger is so large that it cannot be expressed in society because
Mm.
of the obvious social cultural reasons and also because of one's personal circumstances.
Mm.
Now, because all of this anger cannot be expressed, only a small part can be expressed. So let us say out of volume of say 100 grams of anger, 10 grams can be expressed Another 20 grams can be sublimated, another 20 grams can be repressed, but the 50
Mhm.
grams is such, nothing can be done about it. So that then goes into somatization. So the same person can
Right.
show high blood pressure because of this anger. The same person can show inflammation of skin going red. The same
Mm.
person can show ulcers. The same person can show very high diabetes because of that type of diabetes which happens because of immune system attacking the pancreas.
Mhm.
Because the anger is then put into the immune system and then put it out onto the pancreas. The same person might show some eczema or psoriasis. So the same person shows so many different sicknesses which from allopathic standpoint will even belong to different systems. So you will have to show it to a different specialist and each will give his own test.
True.
But at its root, from a psychoanalytic standpoint, they all are coming out of the repressed anger which is coming, sorry, accumulated anger which is coming from three sources.
Mm.
And if we can get this anger out through certain techniques of anger therapy or ISTDP or psychoanalysis or psychodrama or energy healing like Reiki or pranic healing or homeopathy, then correspondingly we should see improvement in all of them. The proof of the pudding would be in the eating. If this theory or this way of thinking is true, then what this way of thinking suggests, if it works, only then we can say it is true. But by and large, uh, the entire area of holistic healing, by and large, proceeds with this kind of thinking. Yeah. Sorry, one more thing. We were talking about the psychoanalytic explanations. So apart from
Mm.
conversion, we had the conversion, factitious, and then we had the psychological conditions affecting other medical conditions.
Right. Right.
Like if you have anxiety or if you have anger, it can aggravate the blood pressure or it can aggravate
Mm.
heartbeats. So somebody has heart condition and also anxiety, it's a
Mm.
trouble for that person. So there, if there are psychological issues which can aggravate existing somatic issues, that will be somatization of that affect from a psychoanalytic standpoint
Okay.
because the effect cannot be expressed, cannot be sublimated, cannot be processed, and cannot be replaced.
Right.
So first you will try to express, then you will try to regulate through other means. If no regulation is possible, you try to repress. If that is also not possible, it gets into somatization.
All right. So as we see, there is a lot of physiological presentation of symptoms, and people tend to get more alert when it is happening on the body. So how does School of Psychoanalysis proceed with the healing of somatic symptom disorders?
Uh, we are dealing here with very high amount of and a very strong traumatic experience.
We just lost you in between. We are dealing with a very high amount of.
High amount of affect.
All right.
We are dealing here with a very high amount of affect. We are dealing
Mm.
a very deep trauma. We are dealing with moderate to acute situations. We are not dealing with mild situations at all. In mild situations, you don't somatize.
Okay.
We are also dealing with extremely sensitive individuals. We are
Mm-hmm.
dealing with individuals who are not only sensitive, but who have a weak
Mm.
ego strength so that they are not able
Mm.
to express or repress their affect. They are also not able to
Right.
tolerate affect. And therefore, uh, the therapy essentially has to be moderate to long term. It cannot be a short term.
Okay.
The way to heal it in psychoanalysis would be classical psychoanalytic psychotherapy, making revisiting the past, making the unconscious conscious, cathartic out the affect, and we are looking at 2 to 3 days a week for 2 years at the minimum. It may even go up to
All right.
some cases 3 years. And one good way to complement psychoanalytic psychotherapy would be ISTDP. In fact, some people would go to the
Mm.
extent of saying that ISTDP would be better than psychoanalytic psychotherapy. But it would depend
Mm-hmm.
on the ego strength of the person. If the ego strength is high,
Mm-hmm.
maybe ISTDP can be a quicker thing to release the affect. Another important element in this
Okay.
is complementing this by anger therapy or by psychodrama. They are also very powerful cathartic tools. The core in this part is that we do psychoanalytic psychotherapy 2 to 3 days a week, 2 to 4 years, and we use the Freudian, Kleinian classical methods, in some cases Kohutian, but mostly Freudian, Kleinian, and we complement it by some technique of sort of bulk catharsis of negative affect. And that may be
Mm-hmm.
ISTP, it may be psychodrama, it may be anger therapy. So this is how broadly we will look at uh, helping someone in this category of disorders, especially of the conversion time. If we are looking at, say, illness anxiety disorder or pseudopsychosis
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
factitious, then we may be looking at a milder version of
Mm-hmm.
that. We may be looking at, say, 2 days a week, 6 months, or 2 days a week, maximum 1 year. We may be there looking at the classical Freudian Kleinian interpretation going on. So this is the way we would be looking at. But the core of this chapter, which has to deal with the conversion, and that is where we are doing it. We are looking at very, very strong phenomena.
So when you say there are so many different schools complementing each other and they go hand in hand in the healing process, that brings us to the holistic healing again. Holistic healing, we hear it so often today, and how this approach of holistic healing can help in healing of somatic symptoms and related disorders.
Uh, in fact, this is one of the areas where holistic healing is not only possible, it is actually a necessity because we are
Uh-huh.
with very large amounts of repressed affect. And I'm focusing more on the conversion disorder, the core of it. Other parts you can easily deal with. For other parts, let's talk about it in two ways. One, the conversion part, the serious part, and the other parts of this chapter. In other parts of this chapter, uh, Reiki, pranic healing, yogic techniques, uh, they will help the person to overcome anxiety, to relax himself, feel better, reduce the blockages in the flow of energy, and so on. When we come to the conversion person and the more serious stuff of this chapter, then we are looking at how to get so much of the effect out. So, with regard to pranic healing and Reiki, we require really a powerful healer, a very powerful healer to really make an effect. That is one. Two, homeopathy is very good for this kind of repressed effects. Three, ISTDP, uh, psychodrama, they are very, very powerful. One Osho meditation, it is called AUM, awareness, understanding in meditation. That also is a very powerful technique to bring out negative effects out of oneself. It's a active meditation, a group meditation, which is essentially for catharsis of negative emotions. And for this kind of situation of heavily repressed negative emotions, it is a very good technique to complement what we are already doing otherwise. So Reiki, pranic healing, homeopathy, the AUM meditation of Osho, psychodrama, breathing techniques, Reiki, pranic healing, Tai Chi, all of these are very useful for this range of disorders, particularly the conversion rate, the heavy lifting that we have to do in this chapter. And for rest of the issues of the chapter, Reiki, pranic healing, homeopathy, and the breathing techniques, they should help the.
Acupressure and acupuncture also, they can be also benefited, some kind of massages.
Yes, very good so. In fact, I forgot, I should have said that acupressure and acupuncture both are essentially based upon overcoming the concentrated blockages of negative effect. The belief there is that when too much of negative effect is generated, it creates a concentrated block of that negative effect, and that blocks the flow of healthy energy. And the whole attempt there is how to remove this concentrated negative block by pressure or puncture, so that the normal flow of energy is restored.
Right, right.
So the pressure or the puncture essentially is to dissolve or disintegrate or break into parts that concentrated block of negative effect. And the negative effect, it's good that you brought it out. When we keep talking of negative effect, what do we mean? Affect or feelings can be both positive or negative. Like happiness, delight, curiosity, exhilaration, beauty, like laughter, humor, they are all positive elements in the psyche. But when we talk of anger, fear, pain, guilt, shame, envy, powerlessness, feeling of rejection, feeling of abandonment, these are negative events, and they lead to feelings of anger, pain, sadness, guilt, envy, shame, and these are the negative effects we are referring to. It is the excess of these negative effects which results in somatization. And what acupressure and acupuncture, also pranic healing with Reiki and Tai Chi try to do is to disintegrate these concentrated blocks of negative effect to re-establish the normal flow of healthy energy.
Right. So, when we talk about the patient, the individual who is going through this disorder, or who's facing this disorder and going through the distress, um, it must be very difficult to convince the patient that whatever he's feeling physiologically, it has to do something more with the psychological part. So, how does the patient education becomes important here, and how to go about it?
You are right, because we are all brought up in a hardware-oriented, materialistic educational system. So
So true, unfortunately.
anything soft affecting the heart is counterintuitive to most of us. And this is where psychoeducation has to uh, make the person aware that by observing the rise and fall in his own sicknesses, he can see their correspondence with psychological events. He can also see that when he goes into the depth of himself and clears out certain psychological events, there is a positive corresponding effect on the biological problem he has.
Hmm.
The link between the psyche and the soma has to be explained to the person in this entire category. Also, that
Right.
how the psychological aspect will negatively influence the somatic aspect. Second, how to create a basket of tools which address both. Because in some cases, only psychological aspect addressing will be okay. In some cases,
Hmm.
they have to address both the elements, the body also and the mind also.
Hmm.
So which tools to choose for that? And how to develop synergy between this whole basket of tools. So it's
Okay.
important to scientifically discuss with the person and allow the person the choice to try out various things, and then whatever works, proceed with that. Two, it is necessary for us to make the person know that because both are involved, we have to look at do's and don'ts of both the sides. So what food aggravates the body? So there has to be a do's and don'ts of what to eat, and there are do's and don'ts of what to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So both you have the biological do's and don'ts and the psychological do's and don'ts. Both are important
True.
for this category. It is not only the diet plan which will work, there has to be a psychological diet plan also.
Yeah.
Then we look at the third element of believing in the holistic healing techniques. Because holistic healing techniques often are not so brutally powerful that despite the belief they may work. So the person has to have some sort of belief, right? And therefore we have to uh, guide him to those tools only where he can believe that it may work. And many of the holistic healing tools now are getting scientifically validated. So we have a scientifically validated basket of tools to offer to the person. Then we have to look at the person, how he reports to us what works or does not work, how he empowers himself with holistic healing techniques like Reiki and pranic healing or the yogic pranayama techniques. And
Mm-hmm.
lastly, how he gets into positive thinking, strengthening the positive aspect of himself, joining a social support group, joining some social cause to have that superego mania kind of good positive feeling. Right? And positive thinking is very, very essential in this category of disorders because we are looking at catastrophic thinking in a very pervasive way and how to move from catastrophic thinking to positive thinking. Some people even go to the extent of coining the new word, a catastrophic thinking. Happy thinking,
All right.
catastrophic thinking. So all of this is
Right.
very essential, and most important is uh, reporting to the healers what is working and what is not working. Because this is
Mm-hmm.
an extremely complex situation. I'm referring to the strong conversion difficulties.
Right. Right.
Extremely complex situation, and the reporting is very essential for the healer to tailor his approach. So psychoeducation
Mm.
is very essential for this whole package to work out because it's an extremely complicated, multifactorial, non-linear exponential system that we are dealing with.
Right. So we all understand that when a person is going through a lot of distress, we all need a lot of support, not from the therapy, but from the family and the loved ones too. So when it comes to the stressful disorders, what should the family members of caregivers do if their loved one is suffering from any kind of somatic or related disorders?
Uh, First, we have to educate them about the two aspects we are dealing with, the soma and the psyche. And we have to impress upon them that the psyche is as important as the soma because
Mm.
this is not something readily accepted or known. And we have to say that in healing process, we have to walk on both the legs. This is not something which we can heal by walking on one leg. That apart, the psychoeducation of caregivers or parents will sensitize them to the psychological aspect, what not to do, so as to aggravate the person. Because often they would do the biologically right things and psychologically wrong things, and they cancel each other and no progress is made.
True. That's quite possible.
Yeah. So they will take him to the best biological doctor and then give him such traumatic psychological treatment that half of it is undone. So the the psychological aspect which they have to provide to the patient also has to be told to them that this is not something abstract and elusive. It is going to have a concrete effect.
Mm-hmm.
So that is to be communicated. Third, if we tell them what to monitor, what to look out for, the healers will get very relevant data on what is working and what is not working. They can also help the person in his holistic healing pursuit, because if the person goes to Reiki or pranic healing and the family members start laughing at him or don't support him or persecute him, very soon the person may get discouraged and may not do it any further. Or when he is
True.
practicing at home, if people make fun of him, he may get discouraged and not go further and lose out on one avenue to accelerate healing. So, not mocking him, not persecuting him, not criticizing him, not shaming him, but encouraging him, even if they don't know what is happening or what he is doing. That is very important to really uh, press the accelerator, all the levers on the accelerator. So this central healing, which is happening from psychotherapy or psychiatry, and this holistic healing techniques, which is practicing on his own, the psychological do's and don'ts in the family, finding out social support groups where this person can go to have a good time, to have progress, to have support, and finding some good goal for the person so that he can put some time into a goal which can provide him some sort of superego strength, superego appreciation, superego acceptance, superego pleasure, and so on. And lastly, this kind of sickness can be extremely demanding on caregivers. So they need support, they need some analysis so that they don't develop secondary issues of secondary problems of anxiety, anger, and so on. In the process of giving care, they don't fall sick themselves. So all these issues need to be addressed, discussed, managed, and for that we need really good and adequate psychoeducation of the parents.
That's very important, as we understood. Another thing, as in today's discussion, we realize that somatic symptoms and related disorders are such a classic example of psyche and soma, that is the body and the mind interwoven together, not only in your well-being, but also in your suffering. So we must take care of both of them together.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vedya, for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much. We have covered today's somatic symptoms and related disorders. In the subsequent videos, we will be covering other disorders from DSM-5 in the same way. Do watch our upcoming videos and write to us at hvindia@gmail.com. Namaste.
Yes.